Today, most people are out and about celebrating Heritage Day. There are calls for us to focus on the future, but not to forget where we come from. One expert says we have to create a better heritage for our nation and children. To discuss this further, we're joined by the University of Stellenbosch Business School, Professor Klerk. Thanks so much for your time, Prof. We appreciate it. I want to start off by how you describe heritage as a verb. Many people see it as a day to remember where you come from and dress up in your tradition and your heritage. But what is Heritage Day really about?
Well, Heidi, those customs that you talk about and the way we do celebrate Heritage Day is wonderful, and we should always do that. Heritage Day and heritage is about traditions that's been handed down to us. So we should continue about that. But we must remember that what we celebrate now as heritage were the realities of our ancestors many years ago. They created the heritage that we can now celebrate. And in the same way, whatever we do today, create the heritage for the future. And therefore, we have to consider what we do and how we do things, because that is the heritage that we create. We create heritage whether we want to or not. Just by being here, we do that. Many years from now, people look back to today and say, those were the good old days. They will look back in today and say, what did my ancestors do? Why didn't they live a different life and leave something different for us? And that's where I say that heritage, we must also consider it for the future. And there are certain things that we have to do, that we must act and enact things in a different way so that our future generations can be proud of the heritage that we leave them.
The President Cyril Ramaphosa, spoke in his Heritage Day address about how people should call out corruption, how people should not get involved in acts of corruption. And this is directly linked to the heritage and the legacy that we leave behind, isn't it?
Absolutely. And even if we look at the definition of heritage in the dictionaries, it is what we leave behind, and it includes things like speaking up. It includes things like courage to do the right thing. It's not just dressing up in clothes that were worn 100 years ago and celebrate certain practices. So the examples that we set now becomes the heritage of future generations. So speaking up about that, that's exactly what we should do. The risk is that we remain with good intentions when we say those things. You know, there's a saying, actions speak louder than words. It's great to have those intentions and to leave or to speak them about the heritage we want to leave, but we have to enact them. Otherwise, we don't leave that kind of heritage.
Prof, speak to me about what we should be doing and what steps we should be taking to ensure that the heritage that we leave for the future generation isn't one of corruption and wrongdoing.
We have to realize that, as I said earlier, we leave a heritage whether we want to do it or not. And therefore, we have to think about what kind of heritage we leave. And we can hide in certain practices in the past, like in the exclusive history that we had with apartheid, or we can create a heritage by being someone different, somebody that's more inclusive, somebody with compassion, somebody with courage to do the right thing, somebody with tolerance for others, and acceptance of others that look different than me, think different than me. So it comes back to personal behavior, and we tend to project too much of what we believe should be done in terms of creating a heritage to the CEOs of organizations, to politicians. We all have to do that. It's not just them. We are all leaders in our own right, whether I'm just a person at my family, I lead in many places. Whatever I do at work, I lead in many places. So I must take responsibility for myself, and I will be liable for the heritage that I create in my personal life.
Great. Thanks so much for those insights. That was Professor Klerk from the University of Stellenbosch.